I should have known something was terribly wrong the moment I set foot in that cursed town. A feeling of dread washed over me, causing the hairs on the back of my neck to stand on end. But I shrugged it off, convincing myself it was merely the gloomy weather and my own fatigue from the long drive. I had been hired by a wealthy businessman to investigate some recently unearthed Roman ruins just outside the remote village of Drenchen. As an archaeologist and consultant on the paranormal, I've seen my fair share of strange occurrences over the years. This job seemed straightforward enough: examine the site, assess any potential risks, and report back to my client. Little did I know, the horrors that awaited me in that forsaken place would shake me to my core. The locals seemed off from the moment I arrived. They looked at me with hollow, suspicious eyes, as if they knew some dark secret that I did not. I tried making conversation, but they responded with hushed murmurs and promptly scurried away. An elderly woman spat on the ground in front of me, muttering something about the cursed ones under her breath before disappearing into the mist. Unsettled but undeterred, I made my way to the excavation site on the outskirts of town. As I crested the hill, the magnitude of the ruins stretched out before me. A sprawling underground temple complex, its vaulted ceilings and columns miraculously intact after 2 millennia beneath the earth. My investigator's mind raced with questions and theories about the civilization that constructed such an awe-inspiring place of worship. But an ominous energy permeated the air, causing my heart to pound in my chest. I descended into the main antechamber, fumbling in the dim torchlight to examine the strange symbols etched into the floor and walls. That's when I heard it, a faint whisper that seemed to caress the shell of my ear. I spun around, my heart caught in my throat, but there was nothing there. Just the shadows dancing across the ancient stones. I chalked it up to a draft and pressed on, deeper into the ruins. As I rounded each corner, the whispers grew louder and began to take shape, like a chorus of hushed, indecipherable voices, all speaking at once. The torchlight flickered and danced, their tongues of flame swaying in blatant defiance of any physical breeze. My palms grew slick with sweat as I felt a presence close in around me. Then it happened. A guttural howl reverberated through the chamber, thunderous and bone-chilling. It wasn't the cry of any earthly being, but something ancient, malevolent. Suddenly, the shadows seemed to breathe with a sinister life of their own, twisting and contorting into monstrous shapes. I ran, stumbling blindly in the near darkness, heart pounding like a hammer against my ribs. The antechamber opened up into a vast, underground temple, its vaulted ceiling stretching up into the infinite blackness above. Stone effigies lined the walls. Horned deities with leering grins seemed to follow me with their hollow eyes. That's when I saw them, dark, hulking shapes emerging from the shadows. Misshapen, vaguely humanoid forms that skittered and crawled with an unnatural quickness. I froze, petrified, as they encircled me, their rancid breath hot and damp against the nape of my neck. My mind reeled, struggling to process what I was seeing. These things, they couldn't possibly be real. And yet they were, the embodiment of every nightmare that has tormented mankind since our existence. I opened my mouth to scream, but only a pitiful croak escaped my lips. One of the creatures loomed before me, its body a twisted mass of sharp angles and pointed appendages. 2 sunken pits of fire burned in the place of its eyes. In that moment, I knew true terror, an all-consuming dread that leached every ounce of warmth from my body and left me hollow inside. This thing, whatever it was, did not belong to our world. Its mere presence seemed to defy every natural law, an obscene perversion of reality itself. As it reached out with a clawed hand towards my face, something inside me finally broke. My body moved on pure animal instinct, spinning on my heels and sprinting as fast as my legs could carry me. I didn't look back, didn't pause for breath, just ran blindly through the catacombs towards any resemblance of an exit. The sounds followed, echoing through the twisting tunnels, skittering steps, guttural howls, those maddening whispers that burrowed their way into my mind. At times, I thought I felt the brush of a claw against my ankle, only to look down and see nothing there. After what felt like an eternity, blinding daylight burst in front of me and I burst through the ruins' entrance, tumbling down the hillside as my legs finally gave way. I must have blacked out momentarily because the next thing I knew, I was lying at the base of the hill, chest heaving as I gasped for air. Footsteps crunched in the dirt nearby and I jolted upright, heart seizing in fresh panic. But it was only the elderly woman I had encountered earlier, stooped over and leaning heavily on a gnarled cane. The look in her eye, however, was one of grim acceptance rather than surprise or confusion. "You've seen them, haven't you?" Her voice was little more than a ragged whisper. "The cursed ones." What were those things? My voice trembled, barely audible. She cocked her head towards the ruins, lips drawn in a tight line. "Evil given form. Abominations that have lurked beneath these lands since before the birth of Christ. We had hoped mankind's disbelief would allow them to slumber for eternity." Her words chilled me to the bone. Before I could respond, she pressed a gnarled finger to my lips with surprising force. "Listen to me and listen well. You must never speak of what you witnessed, lest you rouse their interest once more. The only way to stay safe is to forget, to purge every sight, every sound, every memory from your cursed mind." Her gaze bored into me, eyes shining with an intensity that betrayed her frail form. For if they're able to grasp even a single tendril inside your consciousness, they will never let go. You'll spend every waking moment being tormented by their presence, wondering if what you see is real, or the inception of madness taking root. She leaned in closer, so close I could smell the stale odor of death on her breath. "And when the nightmares come," she said, "you'll pray for the sweet release of insanity, just to escape the horror." I opened my mouth, desperate to ask 1,000 more questions, but she had already turned and hobbled away, down the road, towards the village. Shaken to my core, I slipped into my car and sped away from that hellish place, as fast as the engine would take me. But no matter how many miles I put between myself and Drenchen, I could still feel the insidious whispers lurking at the back of my mind. A looming sense of dread, like the first tremors, warning of an imminent earthquake. Every shadow holds the potential for new terrors. Every creak and groan from the darkened corners of my home sends my heart racing with fear of what might be lurking there. And each time I close my eyes, I see them, those wretched, unspeakable forms, silhouetted in the darkness. Waiting. Watching. Unblinking. Madness claws at the edges of my psyche, seeping in like a creeping black mold. I'm not sure how much longer I can resist its siren call to sweet, blissful oblivion before the final spark of my sanity is extinguished. But I've realized there is something far worse than falling into the abyss of my own mind. For if I let the grip of insanity loosen, even for a moment, it will create an opening, no matter how small. And that's all they'll need to slither their way back in, planting the seeds of their corruption to fester and take root once more. So I endure, gritting my teeth against the torment, as I'm assailed by visions and nightmares so perverse, so antithetical to all we know of reality, that even documenting them here risks unraveling what few threads of stability still remain bound between my fragile mind and body. Through it all, one question haunts me more than any other. What unimaginable power, what profane ritual, could have originally conjured such profound malice into existence from the ether so long ago? And if these abominations can defy mortality, death, and the laws of physics themselves, how can anything stop them from eventually breaking through into our realm once again? I fear the answer may be nothing. And that cold truth is perhaps the most horrifying notion of them all.